Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mayor.
I'd like everybody to remain standing. First, I'd like to ask everybody in the audience here to please silence your phones in honor of the ceremony that we're having here today. And I'd like to also start today by thanking a lot of people who are participating in this program here today and introduce you to some people who are very important here on the stage. First, we have County Commissioner Charles Kenny. We have both our Assemblyman Robert Karabinchuk, our own Sterling Stanley, Council President Sharon Sullivan, Council Member Dinesh Bahal. I'm going to save my remarks to the end of the program because what I'd like to start out by doing is by thanking many of the people who are here today and are participating in the program, because many times that's what we usually save to the end, and as everybody's leaving, they don't get the attention that and the credit that they deserve. First and foremost, we want to thank all of those who came out today to support the families of those who lost their lives on the tragic day of 9/11. We'd also like to thank our East Brunswick VFW Post 133 and their chaplain, John Merriman, who's here today, and she just tried to sneak in behind me, but County Commissioner Shanti Nara. Rabbi Eisenkramer from Temple B'nai Shalom, and Reverend Erica Muniz from the Aldersgate United Methodist Church. The Honorable Paul Endler. Our guest speakers today, who will be Father Mark Hanna from the St. Mary's Coptic Orthodox Church. The Honorable former Mayor William or Bill Neary. And Maura Alvarado, who's the niece of Susan Blair, one of the victims who unfortunately was from East Brunswick and lost her life on 9/11. A big East Brunswick thank you for all of our fire departments represented here today: the East Brunswick Independent Fire Company, the Old Bridge Volunteer Fire Company, and Brookview Volunteer Fire Company. Please, a big round of applause for the East Brunswick Police Department. We also want to recognize the rescue squad members who are here today. They are from the RWJ Mobile Unit, which was formerly the East Brunswick Rescue Squad. One of the main reasons that we're here today, which is to teach what happened on 9/11 to those who weren't there. So please, a big round of applause for our East Brunswick Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts Troop 501. And you'll be hearing today from the East Brunswick Brass Players under direction of Brian Toth. And last but not least, we don't have any of this without our Department of Parks and Recreation, and I think they need a big round of applause. The Director, Mike Reisner, and our Business Administrator, Joseph Crisculo, here on the stage. As is of occasions like this, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and that I call upon John Merriman, Chaplain from the VFW 133.
Uncover. Attention. Present arms. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms.
And for the singing of the Star Spangled Banner, the Honorable Paul Endler.
Present arms.
say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, sir. I am so jealous. My wife always says that if I did that, I would probably clear the crowd out. I'd like to call on Reverend Erica Muniz for the invocation.
Let us pray. We remember, God of history and remembrance. We remember. We remember when the towers fell and the lives were lost. We remember the dust and the smoke, the despair and the grief. We remember that sense of vulnerability and shock. We remember the numbness that overwhelmed us as we watched our screens for hours and hours, waiting for an explanation and understanding that never came. We remember. We remember, God of hope and presence. We remember the heroes, those who rushed to help, those who guided the wounded down innumerable flights of stairs, who rose to overwhelm those who held death in their hands. We remember the hours and the days of binding wounds and healing hurts, giving comfort, drying tears. We remember words of support and compassion from nations far and wide. We remember. We remember in part because we see the ripples of that tragic day continue to impact our world 20 years later. We grieve with allies today as our allies grieved with us 20 years ago. And together we wonder if there will ever be an end to the violence, to the war, to the hatred, to the death. We remember and we grieve our world's inability to learn the things that lead to peace. On this solemn day of remembrance, gracious God, we pray to you that we may honor the lives that were lost in this tragic act, that we may give thanks for those who served and saved, who rendered aid and assistance, that we give comfort to those whose lives are filled with loss. And may we seek justice and peace where it is within our ability and rely on you when the ability escapes us. On this solemn day of remembrance, may we build what has been torn down. May we mend what has been broken. May we live your love when hate seems to reign. May we bear witness to the cause of peace in our community and beyond. We call to you now as we remember, our God of justice and peace, our God of hope and love. Give us a will to truly pray that your kingdom may come on earth as it is in heaven. It is in your name we pray this day. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Evan. It's a great honor now to have three speakers who will be addressing us today, each with a unique and different perspective on the events surrounding 9/11. It's a great honor for me to call upon Father Mark Hanna from the St. Mary's Coptic Orthodox Church to ask him to address us this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank our beloved Mayor Redquan, and also the town of East Brunswick Township that have me here tonight to be with you. For me, today is a very emotional day. And 9/11 is a day full of emotion and feelings. As we gather today also to honor and to remember the 6,000 people that they gave life on 9/11 and died that day here. Especially I want to remember three of my friends actually. Frank DiMartini, Paul Ortiz, and a great firefighter, Patrick Brown. My story actually on this day here, my name is before priesthood, I became Father Mark Hanna, but before priesthood I was Father Mac Hanna, M-A-K, last name is Hanna, H-A-N-N-A. And I was one of the construction manager and also one of the inspector working for World Trade Center Construction Division. World Trade Center Construction Division is basically the building department of the World Trade Center, because the World Trade Center had its own building codes. So at that day, exactly 8:46. This is a moment that I was on 88th floor, building 1. That's where my office is. And 8:46, we felt that the tower was shaking. At that moment, actually, all of us, we felt maybe something wrong, especially we had a problem with the generator on 75th floor. We started really thinking. Then we looked from the window, we find papers and dust and smoking all over the place. This moment, actually, I was in east side of the building. And if the first flight that entered into building 1 went between 92nd and 93rd floor from the northeast corner. So actually, we had to gather all us together and walk from the east side of the building because there was so much smoke in where my office is, and we walked all the way to the west side of the building. At that time, actually, my construction manager, the great man, Frank DiMartini, and Paul Ortiz, I was actually one of the fire warden on the floor itself. So we had to gather everybody to make sure everybody out of the floor. We gathered everybody from the east side of the building, and we went to the west side of the building. And as soon as we get to the west side of the building, we start seeing smoking coming. At this moment, actually, we saw one of our secretary, her name is Elaine. She was actually, her office was on the northeast side of the building, which the airplane went to 92nd, but made a penetration from 92nd all the way to 78th floor. So my floor, the northeast corner was on fire. She was coming out actually completely burning. And the sad news, she died in the front of all of us. I had one of my good friends, his name is Jerry Geda at that time. He was our architect engineer. So we had to gather everybody to think. Frank DiMartini, being a great man, he survived 1993 bombing. So he said, don't worry about anything. Nothing will happen to us. The building will be fine. But the key for us, basically, make sure that try to avoid the smoking as much as we can. So we gathered everybody. We went to the stairwell C on 88th floor. The Twin Tower, actually, each one of the tower had 3 stairwells, A, B, and C. So we gathered on the C side. We helped everybody to get out of the building with Frank DiMartini, Paul Ortiz, and myself. Then at this moment, actually, we heard a huge banging coming from the 88th floor, 89th floor. So somebody was basically knocking on the door from 89th floor. So Frank DiMartini has so much courage. He said, let's go upstairs to see what's happening. I actually, one of the people said, we cannot go. There's so much smoke coming from the top floor. So we had to go up, Frank DiMartini, Paul Ortiz, and myself, to 89th floor. At that moment, actually, we discovered some people were trapped behind the door, the seawall door, the seawall stairwell door, behind the door, trapped because the door was jammed during this time here. We managed to actually open the door for them, and I'm going to tell you later on, Paul Ortiz had actually a simple crowbar with him. So we managed to open the door for them. This group actually they worked for MetLife insurance company. They all came out of the floor. I actually tried to go inside. I see the floor was on fire and some people were dead at that time and burned. So we came down from the 89th floor, Frank DiMartini, Paul Ortiz, and myself. On the 88th floor, we find one of the people who used to work in the World Trade Center. And he actually was one of the people responsible for the design the World Trade Center. He was an electrical engineer. His name is Mo Lipson. He was a very old man. I'm not going to tell you his age until later on. Then Frank DiMartino and Paul Rodis and myself were asking who's going to take care of Frank. Being the youngest with Frank and Paul, they give me the work actually to take care of Frank for Mo Lipson. So the three of us, we took Mo Lipson and we started walking down. We went all the way into the 78 sky lobby. The building itself had two sky lobby, one on the 44th floor and one on the 78th floor. So on the 78th floor sky lobby, we stayed for a little bit. We saw some of our friends actually were trapped inside the elevator. We tried to help some of them. That in the end, we find one of the people working there, the security, asked us to leave the floor itself, the 78 sky lobby. So Frank DiMartino, Paul Rodis, Mo Lipson, and myself, we started leaving. Frank and Paul decided to stay a little bit to help somebody else, but they asked me to take care of Mo, and they said, we'll meet you downstairs by building 1 on the west side of the building. So I took Mo Lipson, and exactly which is the time was 9:03 or 9:05. This is the moment actually building 2 was hit. I was about on 68th floor or 69th floor, and I felt actually a very strong shaking. So like some. Then later on, I discovered that building 2 was hit at this moment. So Paul Rodis, I took Mo Lipson, I started walking down until I reached the 21st floor. On the 21st floor was a group of firefighters came. They actually built a station to help those who really needed any kind of medical assistance or oxygen. I met actually Mr. Brown at that time, and he asked me to stay with them for a little bit. I did stay with them for a little bit. We were actually walking around, went a couple of floors upstairs to make sure everybody out of the floor. We came back again. And one of the very interesting things, actually, all of us were very thirsty. And I told them, I'm sure there's like a lot of vending machines in freight elevator lobby. We can go and pick some. And we went and I stayed about 25 minutes with them. Then Patrick Brown asked me to leave the floor. I told him, no, I don't want to leave you guys. I want to stay with you. He said, no, no civilian allowed to stay with us. So I decided to leave. So I went to Mo Lipson and asked him, do you would like to come with me? Mo said, yes, I would like to come with you. I took Mo and I helped him, and we started walking out of the 21st floor. While we were going down, actually, the time was exactly 9:59 or 9:58. That when building 2 actually collapsed completely. I discovered later on. We lost all the emergency power. And at that time, actually, what helped me actually in Mo Lipson to get out of the floor, because the stairwell with the smoke tight, no smoke allowed to get to the smoke. But after 1993 bombing, they did like fluorescent painting to make sure that if you lose the light, you can be able to see a little bit. So I took Mo Lipson. At that time, I told Mo, I have a feeling that I want to run a little bit. And Mo gets very tired by the 15th floor. So I physically carry Mo on my shoulder here. He was very short and very light man. And I start walking down with him until we get to the sky lobby. And the sky lobby actually of the World Trade Center was very emotional, because one of my projects I work on, Thomas Pink, one of the projects, Citibank, and many different stores there. So I saw all of them really. The water was up to my knee. And most of the chandeliers, everything is down. And I decided where to go from here. Mo Lipson actually asked me, let's get out of Church Street exit. I told him Church Street exit is a lot of walking, and I promised Frank DiMartino and Paul Rodis to meet them by the West Side Highway exit. So we went out of the West Side Highway exit. At that time, actually, I would say a little bit after 10:20, 10:15, 10:20. And I was actually calling, I reached a point after I came up to building 1, which is the North Tower. I was so tired. And I started calling on the place of somebody to help me. And they told me, make sure to walk slowly. This is a crossing the West Side Highway from the other side, because there's so many objects coming from the top floor. I looked above me actually, and at that time I saw bodies flying in the sky. It was a very difficult scene. Then I started actually screaming. I said, look, I need help. I'm carrying a man, he's 100 years old. At that time, actually, Mo Lipson hit me in my right side, said, by the way, I'm 89 years old. So I managed myself to get Mo, and I was lucky, actually, one of the firefighters and the police officers came to me and helped me, and he took Mo. Mo needed some oxygen. And as soon as they took me out from me here, I started looking at the building, and a few minutes later, which exactly 10:28, building 1 was collapsed completely. All I remember, honestly, I was running like crazy. I remember I was flying, and until I get to the financial center, where the Hudson River, the financial center, and I find actually 2 beautiful young ladies came to me and tell me, where are you coming from? How did you get here? I said, from 88th floor. How did you get here? Did you jump? I said, no, I walked down. So they actually had water, and they were basically, at that time, I felt our nation was one heart, one mind, one soul. And they did help me actually that day. And it was a very emotional day. And later on, for sure, I met Mo Lipson. And after that, actually, I took my journey back to go home. I walked from World Trade Center until Pier 32, which is basically by 32nd or 36th Street. After I get there, I had to wait online for at least 1 hour, because all the phones were not working at the time, and I wanted to call my wife. I waited on the phone, almost the time was about 1:45. Then I called my wife, I told her, like, I'm still alive. Then after that, I took one of the cruise line. They took us all the way to Hoboken, and from Hoboken I walked to the tech center. The tech center, which is a building, belonged to the World Trade Center, belonged to the Port Authority, which is a building actually just before you get to the Holland Tunnel on the left-hand side, going to Manhattan. I met some of my friends, but I realized at that moment that so many of my friends actually died that day. Especially what touched my heart, actually, Frank DiMartini and Paul Ortiz. The way actually these guys give their life for others, died for others. Frank actually had so many chances to get out, to run, but he preferred to stay to help others. One of the, actually, you can see this in the movie, Inside the Twin Tower. His wife, Nicole, was begging him to come with her, but he insisted actually to stay to help others. 9/11 is a day full of memory, full of emotion, full of feeling. A day, as Solomon said, a day to be born and a day to die. That day, actually, so many people died, but also the day for me, I consider the day that I was born. I consider this day is my birthday. But a day I will never forget, my friends. And I always, on 9/11, even today, this morning, I prayed the liturgy, and I prayed for all my friends, especially those who I work for World Trade Center Construction Division. I knew a lot of friends of the police department. They work for Port Authority Police, and also the Operations Center worked for World Trade Center at that time here. I prayed for them, and you know that right now, their voices still actually will be heard. That I'm very happy that all of us who are gathered to remember them. All of us who are gathered here to remember 9/11. I always, every day when I think about 11, I think to myself, do you think 9/11 will be forgotten? But I'm very happy and proud of East Brunswick Township and the mayor that planned this day today to remember our loved one. All of us here, standing here right now, we know someone, or we hear someone, or we met someone that he passed and died on 9/11. 9/11 is a day that will never be forgotten in my heart. I will always remember 9/11, because 9/11 for me, I lost my best friends, especially Frank DiMartini, who was a very dear friend to my heart, very close friend to my heart. He was my manager, but he was a good friend. And I asked myself, what did I learn from 9/11? Let me tell you 5 lessons that I really personally learned from 9/11. Number 1, the best feeling that day, even so I lost a lot of friends, and we lost 3,000 people at that time. The feeling of being one. Doesn't matter what color, what religion, what country, doesn't matter who you are, but the beautiful thing that we are one. And that's an amazing feeling, to be honest with you. Walking from the World Trade Center all the way down to Pier 32, Just seeing people in the front handing you water, giving you a hug, saying, I'm glad you survived. And all of us will cry together. That's an amazing feeling. I actually, one of the song, God Bless America, touched my heart for the first time in my life when I attended a memorial service in Madison Square Garden. It was actually Governor Pataki was there, and I do not remember the name of the singer that she sang that day, God Bless America. But I remember in Madison Square Garden that day, I would say more than 20,000 people were crying. But the key here were on one heart. Number 2 lesson I learned personally, that to be ready. Be prepared. You never know what day we're going to leave this life here. That day, 3,000 people, they say goodbye to their loved one and went to work. They never came back home. So don't take your life for granted. Always appreciate your loved one. Always appreciate your parents, appreciate your family. Family is very important. Family is very important. The third important lesson, which I learned from Paul Ortiz himself, plan for the unexpected. Paul Ortiz always, his name is actually Pablo Ortiz, and he always carrying a simple crowbar in his hand, in his pocket. He was one of the inspector, and I always joke with him, why are you carrying a crowbar? He said, you never know when we're going to use it. And really, the day came that many people working for Midlife Insurance Company trapped behind the door, and we needed some help. And actually, Pablo Ortiz was able to help us to open the door that was jammed and to save many lives. He actually planned for the unexpected. Number 4, actually, when you get the chance, take a leadership. And this is remind me with Frank DiMartini. When you get the chance to become a leader, take it. Every day in your life, every day in school, at work, in home, anywhere, you will get the chance to be a leader. You can be walking on the street, they find somebody needs help. Help that person here. Frank DiMartini actually that day take a great leadership, and he helped and saved so many people. You can actually search your name now on your phone, and you will hear many beautiful stories about Frank DiMartini and how many people he saved that day. The final lesson, which I always love, always seek and help others. And this is remind me with the man that I met for few, I would say 25 minutes, Patrick Brown. He was one of the firefighters on ladder 3 in downtown Manhattan. They are the first group actually respond to World Trade Center. And these guys, all of them actually, they all died in 9/11. All of them, they died in 9/11. But I would say, always seek and help others, because they came up not to put the fire down, but they came up to help others, take care of others. I hope 9/11 will not be forgotten. 9/11, a day will always be to remember. May God bless you, and may God bless America. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to speak. God bless you all.
Thank you, Father. That was quite emotional, and I knew about your story for several years now, and I wanted to wait for this event. I think that it just goes to show you that you don't know the heroes many times who live amongst us. Of course, present at the time was our Mayor, Bill Neary, and that's a huge burden to have to handle as a leader, just as the Father said, to deal with the loss and the mourning and the difficulties of such a crisis. It does call for leadership, and we were very, very fortunate to have a very good leader at the time. And I'd like to have everybody please give a big round of applause to Mayor Bill Neary to talk about 9/11 on 9/11.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I want to thank East Brunswick for giving me the opportunity tonight to share some of the memories of September 11th, 2001, 2 decades ago. I'm sure there are many here tonight who have their own memories of that particular day. But for others like me, it was a time I will never forget. We woke on a beautiful Tuesday morning, and we were shocked when a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. And then, 14 minutes later, we had a gut-wrenching feeling when the second plane struck the second tower. Instinctively, we knew that things were going to change in our country. These are not Japanese fighter pilots bombing an island 5,000 miles away. These are not the Nazi blitzkrieg bombing London in the darkness. No, these are fanatics taking commercial airlines and killing thousands of innocent people and themselves for no rational sense. Myself and our professional staff immediately met in the crisis room, which is located on the lower level of the municipal building. Assembled were public safety personnel, the police director Tom Fenn, OEM coordinator Austin Kosick, all 3 fire chiefs, our rescue squad leadership, township directors of finance, planning, and public works. We needed to develop a strategy for a response that was not included in our manual for township emergencies. We knew that the tallest building on the southern entrance to Newark Airport was on Route 18 in Narracon Place. We knew there were thousands of our residents that used transportation centers to get into the city every day. We knew there were hundreds of school children whose parents worked in the city and faced the possibility of coming home to an empty house. We knew there was a diverse population with different houses of worship from third places around the world, and they're going to be facing enormous tensions that we have never seen before. The smoke continued to darken the beautiful skies on a bright and clear day. And then, for the next 102 minutes, things were to get worse before they got better. I would like to spend a few minutes talking about September 11th, but to finish up about East Brunswick on September 12th and beyond. Our entire police department was on high alert and were deployed to a variety of public places throughout the entire town. Our fire departments were in call for any unusual activities. The rescue squad was in their barracks waiting for any aid that was requested. We were in constant contact with the hospitals in New Brunswick and Old Bridge. And before there was massive cell phone usage, we provided walkie-talkies to Joanne Magistro, the superintendent of schools, and high-level school administrators. We wanted to know what the kids were doing. We were in constant contact with the county and state authorities. I personally had a certain level of security and confidence because I was surrounded by such a contingent of professional men and women. But I was also very frightened of what else to expect. Remember that the planes had also crashed into the Pentagon and into a field in Pennsylvania. The chimney-like burning towers were not only on television that day, they were visible from an outlook on Old Bridge Turnpike. This was very close to home. I was just the mayor. I didn't have any tragic training. I lacked the skills of these competent people. But I had the responsibility to do something. I figured my best talent was to talk and to listen. So I hosted hourly live television shows on a municipal access television station. I had the professionals explain what we were doing, what we were planning, and what we were learning. I have no idea how many viewers we had, but I do know I got some good comments afterwards. I think it helped. Around 5 o'clock, I went to our transportation center to welcome the commuters with some cookies and some water. Buses came in around 5 minutes apart, and there were very few people on the buses and even fewer East Brunswick residents. The people getting off the bus were very dazed, confused, and frightened. They needed information about how to get to their own towns from Route 18. They came from all parts of New Jersey and even Pennsylvania. We provided them with their phones in our dispatch office so they can call their loved ones. Later that evening, after the buildings had collapsed and the confusion about fatalities and survivors was a prominent concern, the apprehension about what next hung very high and very dark in the air. I went home, my favorite place on earth. Trying to sleep that night was impossible for me and for most of America. But I decided I had to do something, and something had to be done. I declared that East Brunswick was to hold the Candlelight Vigil outside this complex on the evening of September 12th. I called the leaders of the clergy council, Rabbi Milgram from B'nai Shalom, Monsignor Allegro from the St. Bartholomew's, and Rabbi Rogoff from East Brunswick Jewish Center. And I asked them to contact the members of the clergy organization to have members of their group speak at a Candlelight Vigil that evening. About an hour after that, I got a call from Peter Kubacki, the owner of Brunswick Memorial Homes, who said he could provide candles for everyone. And then shortly after that, I got another call from a young lady whose name I can't remember, who said she had recorded a patriotic song and she would like to perform at the Candlelight Vigil. Well, we now had her to perform, we had the clergy to speak, and we had the candles in place. We had an agenda, but we still didn't know what to expect. Well, thankfully, that evening, the eloquence of the clergy, representing the faiths of so many denominations and religions, the beautiful song that I still can't recall, and the hundreds of East Brunswick residents holding lit candles in the darkness gave me the hope that the dream of America was not going to be dimmed by these murderous terrorists. In a few weeks that followed, we established an East Brunswick Relief Fund in order to assist the families of the 8 neighbors that we lost that horrible day. Their names are enshrined and carved forever in our monument. I can tell you a personal story told to me by the families and loved ones of these people, because every one of them had a way to affect East Brunswick as a community. But the thoughts for this EB fund and the contributions for the fund were enormous. But the actual heartfelt feelings were even bigger. But I do remember that there was a tree planted by the students at Warnsdorfer School to remember one of their classmates' mother. I remember that the students at Irwin School made handmade quilts for the families. I remember the thousands of dollars collected in the Pennies for Peace program by the young kids at Lawrenceburg School. I also remember the truckloads of socks, gloves, and water bottles that were delivered to Ground Zero by our Public Works employees. I remember our police department being deployed to Times Square to provide backup for the NYPD. I also remember the work that was done to create this monument. We had Blaise Batko design another poignant sculpture. Steve Gottlieb from Engineering Department designed the garden, and Ed Cohen, our Economic Development Consultant, collected the funds from our business community to pay for it. This monument was dedicated on September 11th, 2002, exactly 1 year to the date. But today, as America moves in another direction, I believe we will stay powerful, not because of our military, but because of our ideals. An ironic twist to that day was a terrorist. They hijacked an airplane from American Airlines. They also hijacked a plane from United Airlines. They definitely didn't understand and totally misrepresented and underestimated the strength of United Americans. Every one of us have pledged many times to be indivisible and to strive for liberty and justice for all. We must never forget our promise in order to keep America strong. So in closing, May our Creator continue to shine a light on the community of East Brunswick, where people from all corners of the earth can live in peace. And may God bless America.
Thank you, Mayor. Our last speaker is Maura Alvarado, niece of Susan Blair, one of the unfortunate victims of 9/11 and an East Brunswick resident.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for coming today and putting this ceremony together. My name is Mara Alvarado, and a beautiful woman named Susan Lee Blair was my aunt, and she was killed in the attacks on September 11th. 20 years is a very long time, but seeing you all here means that we are not letting this event or the memory of our loved ones fade. On September 11th, 2001, I was only 3 years old. And despite losing my aunt that day, I feel like I was still able to grow up with her looking down upon me. Now, most of my memories are of her from stories I've heard and images I've gotten to see and cherish. But what I have that is my own are the feelings that she left behind. When I think of my Susie, I feel warm and happy. It feels like the rays of sun shining down on us on a warm summer day. She lived with my family in Randolph before moving here to East Brunswick, and one of the memories that I have on my own was from a warm summer day. I was playing in a sprinkler in the yard, and I can see Susie and my mom watching me from the stairs of the deck, sitting next to each other like two sisters should. But in the blink of an eye, she came barreling down the steps and jumped right into the water with me, still in her pajamas. I remember thinking that this was the craziest, most delightful thing that I had ever seen in my very short life. Pajamas were meant for sleeping, not for playing, but that was her. A crazy, delightful, and beautiful soul, and when I think of her, this is how it feels. I feel her every time I see a pink sky, or a penny on the ground, or when a sun sets on the day at a beach. The beach was her most favorite place. And growing up, I've carried all of these feelings with me, of a woman who we no longer have. But this is how I grew up with her. And through my memories and the stories I have been given, I have learned so much. She taught me to cherish every single day that we are on this earth, even in the very darkest of times. She taught me that life is far too short to walk around with our shields up. She taught me that it isn't hard to make someone's day just a little brighter. I heard that she used to pull up to toll booths in her little black convertible and would shock the toll booth workers by saying, "How's the day? How's your family?" Just complete strangers. My mom says that she was put here on a mission to make the world happy. And to honor her, I carry that mission with me. And I want to tell you something else about her. She was brave. She was so very brave. Months after the attacks, we learned of her final moments. We learned that when everyone else was taking the stairs, she was in the elevator with her boss, who could not take the stairs because she was 9 months pregnant. She would not let her be alone during that time. And again, I want to say she was brave. Not only was she funny and beautiful, but she was brave. While I would much rather have her with me and my family now, I am so very thankful that we were given someone so wonderful. Even if it was for such a short time, I would never give those years up. I love you forever. I'll love you for always. And until we meet again, my Susie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. She told me before she started that that was going to be the first time she would do any type of public speaking. So I think your aunt would have been very proud. We're going to begin our wreath ceremony. Representing the police, fire, and rescue squad is going to be Jackie Glaus, Anthony Varga, Dino Zalcalatis, and Chief Frank Losaco. For a wreath in remembrance of 9/11/2001 from the VFW, Rafael Vasquez. Thank you for your service. At this point, we're going to have the reading or the roll call of the names of those who were lost on 9/11. I'm going to ask Council President Sharon Sullivan to read the names, and we will ask Brian Toth, Music Director, East Brunswick Public Schools, to ring a chime after each name.
Soon Niang Eng, Susan Lair, Paul W. Inella, Juar Guiron, Alan David Kleinberg, Stuart Lewis, Suzanne Pissarro, Kenneth W. Van Auken,
Order. Arm.
We will now have the East Brunswick brass players play Amazing Grace and God Bless America. It's my pleasure to introduce Rabbi Eric Eisenkramer from Temple B'nai Shalom for the benediction.
Thank you, Mayor Cohen. God of goodness, on this 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks of 9/11, grant us the wisdom to remember the lessons from that tragic day. As we look back and recall where we were, who was with us, and how we felt, may those vivid memories compel us to acts of kindness, words of love, and demonstrations of community. May the myriad images of helpers, firefighters, police officers, clergy, office workers, ordinary citizens, be the icons that inspire us to be helpers too. On this day, we pray for all those who were lost on September 11, 2001. May God watch over their souls. And we pray for those whose lives were forever changed on that day. Grant comfort to those who grieve and mourn. Strengthen those who struggle with questions that remain unanswered. We thank you, Lord of all, for the people who every day put their lives in danger in order to protect and serve others. We pray for all first responders, for medical personnel, police officers, firefighters, and others who never know what a shift at work will bring on a given day. Grant them wisdom, courage, and strength. Father Michael Judge was a devout Catholic priest and a chaplain of the New York City Police Department. He lost his life on 9/11 at the World Trade Center site while giving last rites to a fallen firefighter. Father Judge wrote this poem: Lord, take me where you want me to go. Let me meet who you want me to meet. Tell me what you want me to say, and keep me out of your way. May these words of Father Judge and all of the prayers of us here today rise up to our Creator as we remember those who were lost and we pray for their loved ones as we say together, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. I too remember that on 9/11 I was actually still doing obstetrics, and I was at St. Peter's, and I had several patients who were in labor. And the hospital had made a big announcement after the planes had hit. It became obvious that the nation was under attack, that they wanted all doctors to try to discharge as many patients as possible from the hospital. And so over the next couple of hours, people were being discharged, some who probably shouldn't have gone home, but they wanted to make room because they expected an onslaught of people who would be coming from the towers, and that there wouldn't be enough hospital rooms, hospital beds, and emergency rooms in the area, so we had to make room. And after a couple of hours, it was eerily quiet in the hospital. There was virtually nobody there. And that's when it dawned on us that nobody was coming. And that, frankly, was the most eerie and terrible feeling that I've ever experienced in my life, that there would be no survivors. But what I wanted to talk about today is 9/11 in the greater scheme. It's 20 years. And when we reach milestones like that, they're inflection points. They're opportunities for us to look at how the world's changed. Have we made it better? Have we made it worse? What have we learned? And what I'm about to say is completely nonpartisan. It's a 40,000 view look at what's happened in 20 years. We've had 4 presidents, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. This is not partisan. But I get 4 big lessons out of 9/11 and the 20 years that's followed. First, America lost its sense of innocence on 9/11. We now live with airport security. We created the Department of Homeland Security, which has kept this country safe for the last 20 years. No major attacks on American soil. We're used to security outside of just airports. We have security when we go into public buildings, the water systems, the energy grid. Our recreation places that we go to almost always make us go through some level of security. There's cameras everywhere. Today, our biggest threats don't come from terrorism. Our biggest threats come from climate change, cybersecurity, and domestic violence. The second lesson, an unfortunate increase in racism in this country. It started after 9/11, when we unfortunately blamed an entire Muslim for 9/11, which was only from a small fraction and those that were most radicalized. And over the decades, we've seen an unfortunate increase in racism against African Americans, Jews, Asians, LGBTQ community, disabled, now even women. We've even seen increased bias against immigrants. And we have a record low levels of immigration. We've deported more people in the last 10 years than we've ever deported before. Republican and Democrat presidents, not partisan. And this isn't going to portend great for this country, because this country's based on immigration. Immigrants come into this country and make us great. They start at low-level jobs, which we can't fill today. We have the lowest birth rate in our history. We're actually at lower than replication level. So this is going to have an economic impact for decades to come. The third lesson that we've learned, we've become more aware about how events that are occurring on other parts of the world actually affect us. And we have the access to the news 24 hours a day, and we can fact check it at any moment in time, and yet we've become a more intolerant nation, choosing to garrison ourselves from the rest of the world. We forget that the world becomes a better place when America takes the lead. And fourth, following 9/11, there was a palpable, real increase in patriotism in this country. We had, and now even with the pandemic, a much greater appreciation for the role of first responders. There was an increase in the enlistments into all forms of the armed services. Organizations saw an increase in volunteerism. We were proud to display the American flag. We were proud to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance and to sing the Star-Spangled Banner. But that's given rise to an increase in religious fervor, an increase in militia groups, and a distorted sense of nationalism. Being a patriot today has a much different meaning than it did 20 years ago. So we've unfortunately become a broken and deeply divided country. But I believe very, very strongly that we can heal ourselves. We have the tools at our hands and at our disposal to heal ourselves. We cannot let the people that were lost on 9/11 see us turn into what we've become. We are a nation of very good people. When we have opportunities and tools at our disposal to make the world a much better place and to heal ourselves. We are a nation of innovators, a nation of scholars, inventors, dreamers, workers. There is nothing that we can't accomplish if we don't work together. And we've done it before. We healed from the Civil War. We survived the Spanish flu. We became stronger after the Civil Rights Movement, after the women's movement, after the gay rights movement. We survived the Civil War, and we came together after 9/11. So yes, the world has changed significantly since 9/11. And I don't want another attack on this country to make us become that greater nation and to make us have to come together again. And I certainly don't want that wound to be self-inflicted. So I know that we have the capacity to fix our problems and become a better nation and a better people. The question I leave you with is, do we have the will? I want to thank everybody for coming out here today. I would appreciate it if everybody takes an opportunity to come and look at the statutes that we have here commemorating the 8 victims who were lost on 9/11 from East Brunswick. You're always welcome to the Memorial Park here in East Brunswick. It's open to the public every day. And I just want to end this by saying God bless our troops and God bless the United States of America.